Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Time with the Bible Live. Good to be with you. Our mission throughout this series of studies have been just to get to know Jesus, get to know who he was and what he said, what he did, and the people that interacted with him. Today, my guest has told me that he's sick and he's not able to be with us. So I hope he gets feeling better. We'll be praying for him. But today we're going to be looking at Mark chapter 8. Mark chapter 8, we're going to be looking at this miracle. I want to give some background before we get into the study, actually. Previously, Jesus had been feeding the 4,000, 7 loaves and a few fish. He feeds 4,000 people. I think it's kind of important as we go to read the rest of this to understand the context. So let's begin there in Mark 8. Let's begin in verse 11. Mark 8:11. It says, "Then the Pharisees came out and began to dispute with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven, testing him. But he sighed deeply in his spirit, and he said, 'Why does this generation seek a sign? Surely I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation.'" All right, so Jesus had just fed the 4,000, and the Pharisees come up to him, and they're asking for a sign. And I can kind of think about Jesus thinking, well, didn't you just see what I did? Like, I just fed 4,000 people with Lunchables, with some fish sandwiches. I fed 4,000 people. Why are you seeking signs? You just think about everything that Jesus had done up to this point, the healings of multitudes of people, no matter what they had, the casting out of demons, all that, the calming of the storm. He had done all kinds of things, and yet they're asking for a miracle. It makes you wonder what they're asking for here. I think about it this way. I think what they're asking, they're saying, sure, he can do that, but can you do this? Surely he can't do this. They're just looking for reasons not to believe. And look what kind of sign they're asking. They're seeking a sign in heaven. Maybe they're thinking, hey, look, I want to see the stars fall. I want to see something miraculous done in the sky. I want God to come down and say, this is my son, believe. It's not like he didn't do that at certain points. So they're challenging Jesus. They know that he can do miracles, but they're trying to get him to do something else, some other kind of miracle, to see if he is capable of those. All right, let's keep reading. Let's look there in verse 13. We'll read the rest of this. So we kind of have the reaction of the Pharisees to Jesus's feedings. Now let's take a look at the apostles' reaction. Verse 13, it says, "And he left them, getting into the boat again, departing to the other side. And now the disciples had forgotten to take bread. And they did not have more than 1 loaf with them in the boat. And then he charged them, saying, 'Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod.' And they reasoned amongst themselves, saying, 'It is because we have no bread.' But Jesus, being aware of it, said to them, 'Why do you reason because we have no bread? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000? How many baskets full of fragments did you take up?' And they said to him, 12. And then when I broke the 7 for the 4,000, how many large baskets full of fragments did you take up?" And they said, 7. And so he said to them, "How is it that you do not understand?" So Jesus leaves the Pharisees. He gets on the boat. He's with the disciples. He's heading to the other side. And while they're on the sea and they're heading there, a problem arises. So what's our problem? The problem is they forgot to take bread. They only had 1 loaf of bread. That's all that they had. So what does Jesus warn them about? What he warns them about, he's just thinking about what just took place with the Pharisees. And he warns them about the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. He's warning them about their attitude, their mentality. their mindset, their hard-heartedness. Um, they got to be careful not to have that mentality. And I think Jesus was afraid that they could develop that kind of mentality. And it's interesting that he's thinking about what the Pharisees just did and that whole thing. And what are they thinking about? Oh no, he knows we didn't take the bread. They're thinking about the circumstance at hand, and they start to arguing about it. Like, no, you forgot the bread. No, you forgot the bread. And look how he responds to them. Why do you reason? You would think that they would be able to understand that Jesus could handle a bread shortage, an issue with bread. And he asked them, don't you have eyes to see? Don't you have ears to hear? What did they not see or hear? Did they somehow not see the number of baskets that they took up in the feeding of the 5,000, the 12 baskets? Did they not see the 7 baskets that they took up? Did they kind of just forget about that? Like, it makes you wonder where their mind is, how they so easily forgot about that. But no, they remembered all of it. When he fed the 5,000, there was 12 baskets. There was a basket for each disciple to carry. So surely they would have remembered carrying those baskets. After the feeding of the 4,000, there were 7 large baskets, bigger baskets than the first time. There's huge amounts of leftovers taken up, and surely they would have remembered carrying those huge baskets full of leftovers. And they did. They remembered all of that. I think the issue is not that they fully rejected Jesus like the Pharisees did. Like, the Pharisees were completely blind. Like, they were content with not seeing anything at all, not accepting anything at all. But they really just have no confidence in Jesus like they should because of what they saw and what they experienced. So let's go ahead and read the miracle here. This miracle, every time that you read the Gospels, especially as you go through Mark, think about, why did you put this here? What's the point to this? And I think that's helpful as we go through and look at this miracle. So that's kind of the background. That's kind of what's been going on in the text. And I want to look at this miracle. Verse 22, it says, then they came to Bethsaida, and they brought a blind man to him and begged him to touch him. And so he took the blind man by the hand, and he led him out of the town. And when he had spit in his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. And he looked up and he said, I see men like trees walking. And then he put his hands on his eyes again and made him look up. And he was restored and saw everything clearly. And then he sent him away to his house, saying, neither go into the town nor tell anyone in the town. It's kind of an interesting miracle. Jesus goes, they arrived at the shore. They're in Bethsaida, which is a port city. And there's people bringing him a blind man, and they're begging that he would touch him. So Jesus takes him by the hand, leads him out of town. The lesson wasn't for the townspeople. And he does this unique miracle. It says he spits in his eyes and he puts his hands on him. And he asked him what he saw. And he saw everything perfectly, 100%, 20/20 vision, right? No. He says he sees men walking like trees. And then Jesus repeats the process, and he saw perfectly, 20/20 vision. Now, that's a unique miracle, because as you go throughout the book of Mark, you'll get the sense as you read the miracles, there's one word that he uses constantly. It is immediately. And Jesus will heal people in different ways. He'll touch people and it'll immediately be healed. He'll take them by the hand, tell them to rise up. They'll immediately be healed. And in fact, like Peter's mother-in-law in chapter 1, she got up and she started serving them, just like she never had it before. And in every instance of Jesus doing a miracle or healing somebody, Mark uses the word immediately. But this is one of the ones, very few, where he doesn't use the word immediately, because this is a two-step process. You can think throughout the Bible. Can you think of another miracle where Jesus would do something and wasn't complete, that it wasn't thorough, it wasn't immediately? Because there's not any. This is the only two-step process that I know where Jesus heals somebody in this way. So the legitimate question is why? When something like this happens, you got to ask the question why, because it's unique. You think about it, makes you wonder, did Jesus not have enough power to finish the miracle? I mean, that's not the problem. Did Jesus mess up in the process? No, that's not the issue at all. And if Jesus had the power and he had the ability and he didn't mess up somewhere in here, then why did he choose to heal this man the way that he did? And I think the answer is pretty good. The answer is pretty easy. He did it to teach. You think about the man in chapter 2 where Jesus had this paralyzed man lowered before him, and everybody's waiting and watching to see what he does. And the first thing that he does is he says, "Your sins are forgiven you." Why did Jesus do that? Jesus had a reason. Jesus was teaching. These miracles that Jesus did, they weren't just about physical healing. It wasn't just about healing everybody and everyone. There was a reason behind them. They're meant to teach us something about Jesus. And so here, it's trying to teach us something. And I think he's meaning to teach the apostles. It wasn't for the townspeople, let them out of town. This miracle, this lesson was for the apostles who'd just been arguing about bread. See, the disciples were not completely blind. They weren't like the Pharisees. They didn't completely reject Jesus and the miracles. They had accepted them, but they saw men walking like trees. They had a blurry vision of Jesus's miracles. They didn't fully understand or accept that Jesus could handle every circumstance like they should. Like this miracle, they are between touches. They've been touched once. They have a clearer vision than the Pharisees, but they're still seeing men walking like trees. And think about this, if you were blind, let's say you're blind and you woke up in the morning. Well, let me start by asking this. How would you feel about seeing men walking like trees? I'll say this, without my glasses, everything's a blur. Everything's like men walking like trees. The idea is like everything's out of focus. When I wake up in the morning, I don't have perfect vision. I'm really blind. I'm even blind compared to my wife. But I see everything like men walking like trees. I can see shadows. Sometimes when you're blind, you can't see everything. You can't see clearly, but you can see like shadows and that kind of thing. When light is coming in, you can see the shadow of something. It's like men walking like trees. But if you were completely blind and all of a sudden you were given that kind of vision, how would you feel? You'd feel amazing. It'd be incredible. Like, I got my sight back. Like, I can see better. And if you were blind and had that kind of vision, you would be ecstatic. You would be excited about it. So it's possible for someone to see men walking like trees and be content with it. It's possible for somebody to be completely blind, to reject everything about Jesus, but be like the Pharisees and accept that kind of vision. But it's also possible to have distorted vision and be accepting of that, be content with that. And I think what Jesus is trying to teach his apostles is that's not something that we should be content with. that instead we need to be seeking to clearly see. When we become Christians, when somebody steps out of the water, they have blurry vision. Like, they don't see everything completely. They see enough to believe and accept, but they need to be touched again. They need a clearer vision. They need to study, and they need to grow in their understanding. And they need not to be content with their spiritual condition. I love the Apostle Paul, where he talks about how that he had not arrived yet, that he understood in Philippians 3, he understood that he had room to grow, and he was still seeking. That's got to be our mentality. That's got to be our understanding of it. Spiritually mature people throughout the Bible understand that they need to see more clearly. They still need to grow and in their knowledge. And I think that's the point here. And even though sometimes blurry vision can be helpful in our lives, we still shouldn't be content. Like, a Mormon has better sight than a drug addict, and it's helpful in their lives. But we shouldn't be content with blurry vision. Instead, we ought to seek to grow in our understanding. I hope that's helpful. I love this miracle. I love the teaching behind it and the challenge of it. If you have any thoughts or any comments, please feel free to comment down below. If you have any questions, if you missed the first part of this, and you can always go back, the recording should be there later on today, and you can go back and finish watching the rest. Hopefully that was helpful. Glad that you were on here, and everybody have a good day. God bless.